The findings from the Fitzgerald site are deeply troubling. The sonar scans confirm unexplained shapes.
Deep inside the bridge of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, explorers have uncovered a baffling anomaly that defies explanation. Certain compartments remain eerily intact, instruments untouched, and controls strangely misaligned. Clues that challenge everything we thought about how the ship sank. Was it structural failure, a rogue wave, or something far stranger? The mystery deepens, and every new image raises more questions than answers, leaving investigators and families stunned. The Queen of the Great Lakes. The story of the Edmund Fitzgerald begins long before the storm that made her famous. When she first touched the water in June of 1958, she was not just another ship. She was a statement of power and pride. Built by the Great Lakes Engineering Works and owned by a life insurance company that believed in American industry, the Fitzgerald was created with one purpose. She was meant to dominate the Great Lakes. Her size alone made her unforgettable. At 729 feet long, she was almost as long as 2 football fields. Her dark red hull and bright white superstructure stood out sharply against the gray water. People along the shore would stop what they were doing just to watch her pass. The launch itself felt like the beginning of a legend. The woman chosen to christen her tried to break the champagne bottle against the hull. It did not break. She tried again. Still nothing. On the third attempt, the bottle finally shattered. The crowd cheered, but then something strange happened. A massive wave rose up as the ship slid into the water. It crashed over the pier and soaked the spectators. One man watching the event suffered a heart attack and did not survive. Many who witnessed the launch whispered that the ship had been born under a cloud of bad luck. No one imagined how this moment would be remembered decades later. Inside, the Fitzgerald felt more like a comfortable hotel than a working freighter. The crew enjoyed air-conditioned rooms, tiled bathrooms, and a kitchen run by full-time cooks. There was even a guest lounge created for company executives. Sailors often said that serving aboard the Fitzgerald felt like being part of a special group. She had a reputation for speed and strength. On many trips, she broke cargo records while carrying more than 26,000 tons of taconite from the mines near Duluth to the steel mills of Detroit and Toledo. For nearly 20 years, she moved through storms and heavy weather without a single major accident. More than 700 successful voyages built the belief that she could handle anything the lake threw at her. Families in the lake towns knew her shape on the horizon. Children pointed at her and called her the Queen of the Great Lakes. Yet hidden beneath that trust was a truth no one could see. The very lake that carried her so proudly would one day reveal the weakness she never knew she had. The final voyage. On the morning of November 9, 1975, she left Superior, Wisconsin, with more than 26,000 tons of taconite pellets. It was a routine trip to Detroit, a trip she had completed hundreds of times. The air felt colder than usual, but the lake looked calm. No one on board imagined that this peaceful beginning would become one of the most mysterious endings in Great Lakes history. Weather reports from earlier that day mentioned rough conditions forming far to the west. At first, no one believed the storm would grow into anything unusual. The Great Lakes are known for sudden changes in weather. Sailors often say that the lakes have a mind of their own. They can stay calm in the morning and become wild by the afternoon. What no one knew was that 2 powerful weather systems were heading directly toward each other. One was a cold, dry system coming from Canada. The other was a warm, wet system rising from the Gulf region. When these 2 systems collided over the relatively warm water of Lake Superior, the result became known as a November witch. Sailors feared this type of storm more than any other. By the next day, the lake had turned vicious. Winds rose to more than 70 miles per hour. Waves climbed higher than 25 feet, and sometimes even more. Some captains later reported seeing giant waves that looked like rolling mountains. They called these waves the Three Sisters. These waves came in a set of 3 to do. The first wave hit a ship and flooded the deck. The second wave added heavy weight. The third wave was often the knockout blow. Few ships could survive such a strike. The Fitzgerald pushed forward through the storm with another ship sailing behind her. This second ship was the Arthur M. Anderson. Captain McSorley of the Fitzgerald kept in regular radio contact with Captain Cooper of the Anderson. Through the storm, they tracked one another on radar. For a while, both ships fought the storm with steady confidence. But during the afternoon, the Fitzgerald began to report trouble. Captain McSorley said that a fence rail was down. He said that 2 vents were damaged. Then came the most worrying news. The ship had developed a list. A list meant water was entering where it should not. Even then, the Fitzgerald kept moving. Captain McSorley stayed calm. Yet the lake was growing stronger. The storm was tightening its grip around the ship. Something unseen was waiting in those waves, and it would strike soon. Silence on the water. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong came from Arthur M. Anderson. Captain Cooper had been watching the Edmund Fitzgerald on his radar throughout the evening. One moment, the Fitzgerald was a clear, bright mark on the screen. The next moment, the mark was gone. It did not fade or drift. It simply vanished. At first, Captain Cooper thought it might be a radar issue caused by the storm. He tried calling the Fitzgerald on the radio again and again. There was no answer. Outside, the wind howled like a living creature. Snow and ice struck the windows of the Anderson. Every man on board felt the danger of turning back into that storm, but they all agreed that they had to try. Captain Cooper radioed the Coast Guard. The message was urgent. The Fitzgerald was missing. The Coast Guard attempted to call the Fitzgerald themselves. There was still no response. With no choice left, the Andersons turned around and went back into the violent night. The search began with only small clues to follow. Pieces of wreckage started to appear. Bits of wood, sections of lifeboats, life jackets, oily streaks floating on the surface, but no one found any sign of the crew. There were no survivors and no bodies. It was as if the lake had swallowed everything at once and refused to give anything back. For 4 days, search teams scanned the dark water with aircraft and boats. The waves calmed slowly and the wind softened, but the mystery only grew deeper. Finally, the United States Navy sent a special aircraft equipped with magnetic detection gear. This aircraft picked up a strong magnetic signal from the bottom of Lake Superior. The signal matched the size of a large steel object. Within days, an underwater camera was sent to the location. What the camera found brought silence to everyone watching. The Fitzgerald lay in 2 enormous sections. The bow stood upright in the soft mud, more than 500 feet below the surface. The stern was upside down and twisted. Between the 2 pieces of the ship was a long trail of debris and cargo pellets. The lake bed held the final moments of the ship like a frozen scene. Investigators stared at the images. They had the wreck, but they still did not have the reason. The ship was found. The crew was lost. The cause remained hidden in the silence of the lake. Then comes 50 years of unanswered questions. The discovery of the wreck should have given clear answers, but instead, it created a storm of new questions. For years, investigators argued over what truly happened in those final minutes. The United States Coast Guard released its official report in 1977. Their conclusion focused on the ship's hatch covers. These covers protected the cargo holds from the waves. Each hatch had many clamps that had to be tightened by hand. The Coast Guard believed that some of these clamps were worn out or not sealed well. If water poured into the cargo holds, the front of the ship could lose buoyancy and sink very quickly. The theory made sense on paper, but it upset the families of the 29 men who died. The crew of the Fitzgerald had a strong reputation for discipline. Many people refused to believe that they would leave clamps unsecured. Another theory came from the Lake Carriers Association. They believed the Fitzgerald had sailed too close to a dangerous underwater area called 6 Fathom Shoal near Caribou Island. The charts of that region were known to be unreliable. If the Fitzgerald scraped the bottom even once, it could have opened a crack in the hull. Captain Cooper of the Anderson told investigators that he had watched the Fitzgerald move strangely on the radar around that time. It looked as if the ship rose sharply and then dipped, which could match the moment she struck a hidden ridge. If this theory is correct, the ship may have been taking on water long before she sent her final message. A third explanation came from the National Transportation Safety Board. They suggested that the Fitzgerald might have suffered a catastrophic structural failure. In 1969, the ship had been cut in half and lengthened to carry more cargo. After that, her load limits were raised again. This made her ride lower in the water during storms. Many engineers worried that the added weight and length made the hull more vulnerable. A huge wave could lift the bow and stern at the same time while leaving the middle unsupported. If the hull bent too far, it could snap. This would explain why the ship disappeared so suddenly without sending a distress call. A fourth theory involved a rogue wave. Some sailors claimed they saw massive waves that night, waves tall enough to wash completely over a large freighter. If one of those waves forced the bow underwater, the ship could have plunged like a stone. Every theory fit part of the story. None fit the whole story. And year after year, the mystery lived on. The wild theories. When official explanations failed to answer every question, people began to look in other directions. The sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald felt too sudden and too clean to accept without deeper curiosity. Over time, strange ideas grew around the story. Some sounded possible. Others drifted into the world of mystery and folklore. All of them came from one simple truth. No one truly knew what happened during those final minutes. One of the most unusual ideas involves mysterious lights in the sky. Several pilots and people living near Lake Superior reported strange moving lights in the nights before the ship went down. Their stories mentioned bright shapes that moved too quickly to be aircraft. These reports led some people to wonder if the crew saw something they were not expecting. There is even an old story from a man in Ontario. He claimed he heard radio chatter on the night of the storm. According to him, one of the voices from the Fitzgerald shouted a warning before the radio suddenly went silent. Most experts doubt this story, but the tale still circles around the lake like a ghost. Another theory focuses on the area known as the graveyard of the Great Lakes. This region near Whitefish Point has taken many ships over the years. Some ships disappeared without leaving a single trace. Sailors speak of a ghost ship called the Bannockburns that vanished in the early 1900s and was later seen drifting across the lake covered in ice. Stories like these make people wonder if there is something unusual about that part of the lake. The Fitzgerald went down in almost the same region. The idea of a Great Lakes triangle grew from these patterns. There is also the theory of magnetic trouble. The rocks under Lake Superior contain strong natural minerals that can interfere with compasses and instruments. Some sailors say their needles spin or freeze for no reason. Captain McSorley told the Anderson that his radar was gone. If other instruments failed at the same time, he could have been sailing blind during the worst moments of the storm. A small mistake in that situation could have become fatal. Then there are those who believe the Fitzgerald was cursed from the start. They point to the failed champagne bottle, the wave that struck the launch crowd, and the man who died at the ceremony. They point to strange coincidences in the ship's history and the tragedies that touched families connected to her owners. People kept searching for an answer, and decades later, new technology finally allowed experts to return to the wreck in a way that had never been possible before. What the 2024 deep scan revealed. Almost 50 years after the Edmund Fitzgerald vanished beneath the waves, new technology finally allowed researchers to see the wreck with incredible clarity. In 2024, a team sent an advanced underwater drone into the cold, dark water of Lake Superior. This drone was far more capable than the machines used in the 1970s. It carried bright lights, high-quality cameras, and sensors that could map objects with extreme precision. It moved slowly and silently, sending real-time images back to the research ship above. The first thing the drone saw was the bow of the Fitzgerald rising out of the darkness. It looked massive and lonely. Half buried in the soft lake floor, rust covered the steel. Silt moved gently around the broken edges. Even after so many years, the ship appeared almost frozen in time. The drone moved along the deck and focused on the hatch covers. These covers had been the center of debate for decades. Now the cameras revealed the truth. Many clamps were missing. Others were bent or broken. Some had been torn off completely. This pattern of damage showed that water had likely entered the ship from above during the storm. It did not prove the exact cause, but it supported the idea that the storm hammered the hatch covers harder than anyone expected. As the drone continued forward, it scanned the damaged vents, the twisted railings, and the gaping openings where machinery once stood. The lights reflected off shattered steel, showing deep dents that looked like the marks of tremendous force. The drone then moved toward the center of the wreck. Here, the hull plates were pushed inward in strange shapes, suggesting that the ship may have bent under pressure before breaking apart. The most surprising discovery came inside the bridge area. The drone saw a small object that had survived in an unexpected way. It was an audio tape. This was not a black box and not a data recorder. It was a voice tape from the radio room. No one ever imagined that such a fragile item could survive half a century underwater. This tape might contain the last sounds heard on the Fitzgerald. It might hold Captain McSorley's real final words. It might hold the sound of the hull cracking or scraping, or something else entirely. Experts took the tape for careful restoration. They believe it may reveal clues no one has ever heard before. The world waited, hoping for answers that had escaped everyone for nearly 50 years. But the tape was not the only surprise hidden inside the bridge. Something else waited there, something no one expected. The anomaly inside the bridge. Recent ROV footage, combined with sonar mapping, has revealed sections of the bridge that are puzzling to researchers. Certain compartments appear far more intact than expected, given the violent breakup reported elsewhere in the wreck. Bulkheads and control consoles show unusual misalignments, suggesting the ship may not have simply shattered under stress, but experienced a more complicated failure. Some fittings and instruments remain in place, resisting what should have been overwhelming forces. This has led experts to reconsider assumptions about how the ship broke apart, pointing toward a gradual or uneven structural collapse rather than a single catastrophic moment. The exact cause of the anomaly is still debated. One theory focuses on mechanical failure, such as a fracture in a critical support beam or structural joint, which could have caused cascading damage through the ship. Another possibility is external impact, whether from shoaling, where the ship ran aground on a sudden underwater ridge, or from an unusually large rogue wave that struck with immense force. More exotic theories also circulate, suggesting extreme underwater dynamics or forces beyond standard maritime conditions could have played a role. Understanding the bridge anomaly is more than a technical challenge. Legal and logistical restrictions make deep-water exploration extremely difficult and costly, as the site is protected due to its status as a maritime grave. Despite these challenges, investigators continue to gather and analyze the high-resolution footage to piece together a timeline of failure. Each observation offers clues, but definitive proof remains elusive. For the families of the 29 crew members lost in the disaster, the stakes are deeply personal. Confirming the cause of the bridge anomaly could bring much-needed closure, clarifying how the tragedy unfolded. Yet the mystery also carries the potential to raise even more questions, leaving loved ones to grapple with the limits of understanding what happened beneath the waves. The bridge anomaly remains a haunting symbol of the unknown, a puzzle that intertwines technical investigation with human emotion. What do you think really caused the strange anomalies inside the bridge? Drop your theories in the comments below.